Remember that place. You have raging hormones, just as in adolescence. Thus, that's the greatest way to recognize it. Everyone is aware that Thoreau's company fired Suzanne Somers. But that wasn't Thoreau. She was broke and desperate. She was even closer to her worst secret. She received and spent time in jail after being caught for check fraud. She underwent an abortion in private while concealing their affair from the public, a married guy. ABC didn't simply dismiss her from the show. They made a conscious effort to ruin her career altogether. Things became so violent that she had to be brought to the set by police escorts for more than 30 years. Her co-stars would not talk to her. However, what she did deserve later would lead to even more scandalous situations. In October, Suzanne Somers was born. San Bruno, California, 16th, 1946. Not only was her early years challenging, but it was terrifying. Frank Mahoney, her father, put in a lot of physical labor but still returned home drunk and furious every night. He was aggressive, erratic, and horrifying. Later, Suzanne claimed that she was always afraid that he would harm or murder her. Her Marion, the mother, was a medical secretary. But there was no amount of discipline or the anarchy at home could be subdued by stability. There was never enough money, and her father's everything was made worse by drinking. Everyday life was filled with fear. Each evening sheened in the hopes that they wouldn't become the next victim. Her siblings would hide in closets and hold each other in silence. These weren't naive anxieties, they were authentic. For hours their father would yell occasionally, until dawn. Early on, Suzanne learned to keep quiet, keep little, and not be observed. She was terrified of the simplest thing, lived in continual anxiety, and hardly slept sound. Her body and psyche were deeply scarred by it. One of the long-term consequences of bedwetting was the trauma. Until she was almost 13, Suzanne wet the bed. Her dad did not reassure her. He made fun of her. He referred to her as useless. The embarrassment was intolerable. She made an effort to conceal it from everyone. However, things only became worse after she discovered her the same. This issue was bothering the younger sibling. Both of them were silently broken and made to feel inadequate. Even as kids, she was humiliated for the rest of her life. In addition to all of this, Suzanne was dyslexic. She was tired from writing and reading. At school, she was unable to keep up. Her teachers were not understanding. No one did. They believed her to be lazy. However, in actuality, she was carrying a lot of mental turmoil and not getting any sleep. Her confidence collapsed along with her grades. However, she continued to find happiness in drama and music. It was the only place where she felt important. By the time at the age of 14, she was eager to get away. At that point, she was dismissed from writing notes to a boy and then attending Mercy High School. Even if she hadn't sent them, 8 ended when none discovered them. Her uncertainty and embarrassment only increased. The Globe continued to punish her for things it didn't comprehend. That dismissal turned into an emblem of her annoyance. She was struggling to keep herself together, but no one could see it. However, everything at the age of 17, boiled over. Her lovely prom dress was created by her mother. It was a brilliant, uncommon moment. However, her father barged into her room while intoxicated once more, heckled her nothing and tore the clothing to shreds. That was it. Suzanne took hold of whacked him in the head with a tennis racket. There was blood all over. He possessed a brain injury. Suzanne cleaned up the blood by herself as her mother took him to the hospital. It splattered throughout even the white picket fence outside, as well as the walls and floors. That evening was different. Everything. She vowed never to be by herself with him again after that. Shortly after then, Suzanne made a snap decision. She intentionally became pregnant. She pondered there was no other option. After graduating from college with a music scholarship, she wed Bruce Somers in 1965. She was 18. Love was not the foundation of the marriage. It was a matter of survival. However, it didn't reserve her. Later she claimed that the pregnancy and hasty divorce just made her feel more inadequate. Her son, November 8, 1965, was Bruce Jr.'s birth date. Suzanne was 19. She cherished her son. However, her marriage was already in disarray. They had little money. They engaged in combat. She felt very disoriented. No emotional bond existed. She explained her fear and terror are prevalent in home life. Her son was her sole source of brightness, and he subsequently lived into a writer and filmmaker. However, she thought she was drowning at the moment. By 1967, everything fell apart. A former theater instructor and Suzanne had an affair. When the marriage dissolved when the husband learned she had a baby, was 21 years old and hardly surviving. She held herself responsible for everything. She acknowledged that she turned into someone who concealed, lied, and used deception in order to live. She experienced a crisis following a crisis. Arrests were made. One covert abortion followed by another affair. She was living an unmanageable life. However, she continued. Without lacking schooling and assistance, she began modeling in San Francisco. She accepted any job she could locate. She avoided her older siblings because they were also alcoholics, their dad. She feared that she might become like them, so she forced herself. Difficult. She declined to go the same route. She became a prize. model in 1968. On a game show, she met Alan Hamill there, the man who would transform her life, her existence. She didn't anticipate anything significant when she entered the anniversary game set. The show was hosted by Alan Hamill. From this something ignited the instant their eyes met. Despite the fact that Hamill was married, he began having covert relationships with Somers. Their relationship was electrifying and their liaison swiftly turned into one of Hollywood's worst-kept secrets. Later, Somers alleged that both men and women were drawn to his charm. What began as a dangerous romance quickly developed into a committed partnership. However, there was a cost. Having an affair in those days, particularly with a married man, was regarded as a major controversy. Although it began in shadows, their love felt genuine, and for Arthur had to act as though it didn't exist for a long time. The situation grew considerably more complicated when Somers discovered she was expecting a child. Hamill remained wed, already a single mother. She was attempting to make ends meet in a challenging industry. That there was too much pressure. They decided to terminate the pregnancy, which was sad. The abortion was not made public, but it was impossible to hide the sorrow. It resulted in severe health issues, and she was shaken for several days. Back then there was no open discussion of abortion. It was forbidden, and the experience was made worse by that secrecy. She was carrying their years of emotional scars with her. It altered her self-perception. It caused her to doubt her value and if she was worthy of love at all. The sentimental harm didn't end there. Later, Somers stated, "I was lying back then, hiding and manipulating. I held myself responsible for everything." She was continuously fitful, trying to protect her made every day feel like treading carefully. Romance while keeping the public unaware of the facts. She even concealed information from her own family. She was overcome with guilt. It influenced her behavior, her level of trust, and her interpersonal connections. She was constantly afraid that a single mistake could bring everything to a head. Additionally, the more she lied, the more she thought she was becoming less of herself. Her world shook once more in 1971. Her Bruce, their 6-year-old son, was struck by a car. He almost lost his life. The mishap was terrible, but it also made her pause and asked for assistance. She located a local health center where Bruce's therapy only cost $1. Initially, it was only for him, however. The therapist soon saw that Suzanne also needed assistance. That was the start of anything fresh. She began to face the anguish for the first time. She had spent so much time buried through the sessions. She and her son were able to Additionally, during a period when therapy was still viewed as embarrassing, Suzanne took the opening up was a courageous move. The sentence that struck her like a truck then came. The therapist said, "You have the lowest self-esteem," while looking her in the eye. It was difficult to hear, but it finally made sense. Of anyone I've ever met, Susan had been raised in a family where drink and abuse were commonplace. She had lived her entire life acting as though nothing was wrong. She has now become aware of the extent of her pain. She at last realized why she maintained relationships, and why she accepts suffering and the reasons behind her belief that she wasn't worthy of greater. That instance compelled her to change. She continued her commitment to deep therapy. The recovery years passed, yet it was successful. That suffering, embarrassment, and conflict turned into the basis for her eventual development into a strong lady. She helped others by using her journey. In 1970, Somers Suzanne was at the bottom of the world. She lacked wealth, notoriety, and a definite future. Living, she wrote a $250 rent check in San Francisco, but it bounced. That little amount is worth. She was arrested for more than $800 today. She was arrested by the police for check fraud. The vehicle was seized. She felt completely helpless, embarrassed, and be itself. It was a wake-up call. Not only an error, she was a mother by herself, eking out an existence. She also has a criminal record today. She was afraid at the time, but it stoked a fire within her as well. She made a self-promise to never be in a new position. The years that followed weren't much simpler. She got small TV parts, movies, although they hardly received any compensation. Her name was frequently absent from the credits. She was disregarded by casting directors. Agents failed to notice her. She fought severe emotional scars from her early years while she pursued auditions. She was aware that she was immobile, forward, till she managed the discomfort. As a result, she started therapy, but not for a month or two, but for 3 years in total. She became anchored by those sessions. They provided assistance. She regained her self-confidence. Tragic events. They occurred in 1971 when her son Bruce was shot in a severe vehicle accident. The only fee the therapist charged him, knowing she couldn't afford more. She paid $1 a week. Her entire existence was a financial, emotional, and mental hardship. In order to live, she took any work she could locate. On several days, she provided background assistance for under $100. On other days, she made appearances in ads for tiny local companies. She began selling chocolate sweets to restaurants in order to make ends meet. She even created handcrafted clothes for kids' consignment stores. However, despite her best efforts, there were still days when she had to make a decision. Either feed her son or pay the electricity bill. There were no shortcuts, only rejection, worry, and fear all the time. She never quit up though. Each and every small role was a victory. She was able to remain in the battle with each commercial, a bit more. Then everything changed in 1976. ABC was in dire need. They had already experienced 2 failures with their sitcom, Thrash Company, Silverman, Fred. Though the boss of the network gave the old audition videos one final glance, he noticed Suzanne. He recognized Somers from a Tonight Show guest appearance. He produced a daring call. She was hired the day before the last pilot was taped, and Suzanne still had all of her past struggles with her at that point. The detention, the years of neglect, the therapy, and the poverty. However, none of that was important. When the filming began, 1977, when Thrash Company debuted on television, Suzanne Somers rose to fame right away. Her portrayal of Chrissy Snow, charming. She became well known because she was naive and always dressed to attract attention. Her timing, her giggle, and her innocent playfulness won over the audience. She brought to a performance that dared to make jokes about gender norms and cohabitation. During a period when sex was only starting to be discussed on TV after a year, she won the People's Choice Award for Favorite Female Performer. By 1979, she was willing to accept a Golden Globe. Her picture was all over the place, late-night magazine covers, press conferences, and chat shows. When women were calling for genuine represents on television, she served as a representation of that time as well as a product of how much more needed to be done. However, the on-screen chemistry didn't represent the actual events that took place behind the scenes. Joyce DeWitt, who performed Janet, has undergone extensive acting training. The piece struck her as art. Somers considered it to be business. That altercation quickly became heated. DeWitt felt marginalized and accused Somers of taking center stage and upsetting the harmony of the group. The more well-known Somers became, the more chilly the set became. Additionally, following it, harsh, the 2 women didn't communicate for almost 30 years due to a wage dispute. In 1980, things blew up. Supported by her manager and spouse, Alan Hamill, Somers called for equal. John Ritter should be paid. Her pay per episode was $30,000, $150,000. For Ritter. They demanded 10% ownership of the program and parity. That moved other celebrities from less well-known programs, such as Carol O'Connor and Alan Alda on MSH. Somers was a woman, but everyone else in the family was already making that much money. ABC recently gave in to demands for payment from the example set by Laverne and Shirley, and they did not wish to create another precedent. The response was harsh. They gave her an additional $5,000 every episode. No bargain. The threats followed. Someone called Dottin, a nun will be hanged in the marketplace. The nun was Somers. ABC aimed to create an illustration of her. They wanted more than just her gone. They desired for her to be crushed. The punishment arrived quickly. She cut back on her screen time. Not even she was permitted to be close to her fellow actors. Her scenes were typically filmed as brief, disjointed phone conversations. By itself, she was escorted to and from the set by a police officer. Her last public appearance hardly lasted a minute. A single, degrading phone call from her folks' home week after week until she completely disappeared. The network wasn't about to shut down. Her personality, she was being erased. It was nervous on the set. The enjoyment was gone. Joyce didn't. John Ritter felt deceived. The message was promoted by the producers. You will be punished if you fight for more. The harm persisted for a while after Somers went out. Although she had contributed to the show's success, toward the conclusion, she was regarded as an outcast. The complete story was later told by Alan Hamill. ABC didn't give a damn regarding the consequences. To make a point, they sought to ruin the chemistry of the show. Behind the grins and sitcom chuckles, this was a power struggle, and ABC was trying to each and every Hollywood starlet. Somers attempted to defend herself after being dismissed. She demanded $2 million from ABC. She received $30,000. That was it, to pay for one missed episode. The lawsuit wasn't a complete failure. It confirmed that she was running out of power. She was among TV's most well-known stars. She was now on a blacklist. Casting directors, producers, and even past companions. Nobody desired to collaborate with her. According to her, it was like being rejected by your family. She had been called avaricious, challenging, and ungrateful. She was unable to appear on a network show for years. Decades passed before that picture to fade. In Las Vegas, she changed who she was. She then turned into a fitness guru and entrepreneur after. She developed a new brand gradually. However, the price was huge. In 1980, following her dismissal from Thrash business, Suzanne Somers became one of Hollywood's most talked about women, but not in a positive way. The majority believed that her career was completed. She was called avaricious and challenging. Then the offers ceased to flow. However, rather than vanishing, she went to a location that wasn't known for granting women second opportunities. Vegas. She stunned the entertainment industry in 1982 when she was signed to a headliner deal at her husband, Alan Hamill, negotiated the MGM Grand. She appeared in the same city as 2 of the top celebrities in Vegas, Wayne Newton and Frank Sinatra. She didn't back down even when the MGM Grand Theater burned down in November 1980. Out. She merely relocated her performance to the Hilton in Las Vegas and continued for 2.5 centuries. She won the title of Performer of the Year in 1984. That meant not only restored her reputation but also removed the blemish left by her TV malfunctioning and made her a force in live entertainment. But in 1988, she took the largest chance. Suzanne published Keeping Secrets, a book that is brutally honest. It had nothing to do with Hollywood rumors. It concerned her father, a man whose violence and drunkenness destroyed their family in San Francisco. Separate, she revealed to the public how she was raised to act as though nothing was wrong while living in terror. She talked candidly about marrying young and becoming pregnant at the age of 17 and how her decisions continued to reflect that grief. She cried while she penned the book every day. The tales were authentic. After becoming a bestseller, the book was adapted into a TV film. Additionally, it provided more than just amusement. It made those who had been silent feel less isolated. And Suzanne made another outrageous move in the early 1990s. She failed to get a popular show or AMOV rather. She picked up the Thighmaster, a tiny piece of plastic, a strange-looking workout aid that promised to make your thighs tighter. She starred in the advertisement herself, adding humor, flotation, and memorability. She reported to have used it in bed, at home, and in the automobile. It was made fun of everywhere. However, it sold. In just 18 months, 6 million Thigh-Masters were sold out. By 2020, that figure had increased to 10 to 15 million. At $19.95 a piece, they equated to around $300 million. Additionally, as Suzanne was the owner of the rights, the wealth belonged to her. A joke has become a treasure trove thanks to her. She continued to desire a real TV to return. However, she starred in the sitcom She's the Sheriff in 1987, which was about after her husband passes away. A woman takes over as sheriff. Despite running for 2 seasons, it was never popular. The criticism was severe and it was listed as one of the 50 worst series ever by TV Guide in 2002. It was evident that she had spoken up during the Thross Company days, and the networks still hadn't forgiven her. However, Suzanne refused to allow she is defined by that failure. Instead, she reached out farther. She attained nationality. Faced for advertisements for Ace Hardware. Her cookbooks were wildly popular. She marketed supplements, skincare products, and jewelry. Every action she took carried her name. She was more than simply a former TV star. By the middle of the 1990s, she was millions of dollars for a single woman's brand. The opportunity she had been waiting for finally arrived. In 1991, she was hired by ABC to star alongside Patrick Duffy in Step by Step. The program was a contemporary The Brady Bunch in a twist. A widowed father of 3 children weds a contractor who owns 3 of them. It became a family favorite and showed every Friday night. Between 1991 until 1998, there were 160 episodes of Step. It was uncommon for any sitcom to have that type of run, let alone one headed by a former Blacklist member. Her charisma, timing, and warmth were adored by the audience. Critics started to alter their opinion. Suzanne had transformed from a TV tussler to America's fave mother. She didn't stop with money or fame though. At about the same moment, she began a very intimate project. The Suzanne Somers Institute for Addiction's Impact on Familiar Scam Operations in Palm Springs. Her goal was to help kids like herself who herd up in houses with alcoholics. She assisted others in overcoming the same embarrassment, fear, and bewilderment she had experienced before. She collaborated with experts and provided testimony, led workshops, and served in the Senate. Her voice offered millions of people impacted by addiction. She published Wednesday's Children in 1992, another potent book that told the tales of 22 famous people who overcame abuse as children. Some of the stories were startling, such as Tracy Lords, who tracked out Cheryl Crane, who was mistreated by her stepfather, a tumultuous childhood to her father's alcohol consumption. Once more, Suzanne's personal experience demonstrated that trauma could be overcome and recovery was achievable. The book ended up serving as a lifeline for readers who were afraid to voice their opinions. She helped others by sharing her tale. She spoke at schools, hospitals, and even the US throughout the 1990s. Senate, she discussed hiding in closets as a child in a straightforward and impactful manner on how her self-worth was formed by abuse, and the therapy that helped her break cycle. She was memorable because of her candor. She emphasized that your history need not dictate your future. At age 53, Suzanne Somers' World Pro 2000 saw a shift. She had a 2.4 centimeters tumor discovered during a routine mammography. Breast. In her case, most people would have blindly obeyed their doctor's orders. Chemotherapy is expected, but Suzanne refused. She consented to radiotherapy and a lumpectomy, but adamantly refused chemotherapy. She was advised by her doctors that she was taking a big risk. Fans were taken aback. Experts in medicine were incensed. However, Suzanne remained true to her conviction that alternative treatment and lifestyle modifications offered an option. That one choice turned into the moment that changed her life. It was more than just surviving cancer. It was about disproving everything. In 2006, 6 years later, she furthered her opinions. Father with Ageless, a best-selling book. She commended something in it, known as bioidentical hormone therapy, a medication that the FDA has not authorized for anti-aging. She claimed that it provided her energy, restored her sense of youth, and allowed her to avert illnesses. Her statements were deemed harmful by doctors. Experts cautioned that these treatments might result in heart disease or cancer. Although she was believed by the readers, thousands upon thousands of women hurried to give it a try. Suzanne refused to back down in the face of criticism. She claimed to be living evidence that it was successful. Then, in 2008, a horrible incident occurred. Suzanne was informed her cancer had spread to every part of her body and was incurable. 6 physicians attested to it. She thought she was dying for 6 days. She made plans forthwith and started researching alternative therapies once more. However, after Ash received unexpected news from the 6th doctor, the diagnosis was incorrect. She was without complete cancer of the body. They had misread the tests. Although Suzanne felt relieved, she asked the furious. The system let her down when she trusted it. That was the one thing that made her trust in traditional medicine continues to decline. She published Knockout in 2009. A book includes interviews with medical professionals who favored non-traditional cancer therapies. A few of them turned them down. Radiation, chemotherapy, and surgery all at once. The book was well received. It remained at the number 1 for 6 weeks. However, the American Cancer Society cautioned that heeding her counsel might result in death. Suzanne refused to back down. Mainstream medicine, she said. WASN, single quotes to rescuing people, and there was optimism in her book. Physicians referred to it as scaleless. She referred to it as truth. Shortly after the Sandy Hook massacre in 2013, Shah made a contentious assertion. According to Suzanne, there were poisons in the shoot. Violent conduct may have been triggered by his food and household items. The people was furious. Her statements were based on conjecture rather than science. Critics claimed she was disseminating harmful false information, and the victims' families suffered. Suzanne didn't apologize, though she thought that poisons may destroy a person's mental and physical well-being. Suzanne revealed in July 2023 that her cancer had come back. She was 70. I know how to put on my clothes, she wrote on Instagram. I'm a fighter, and I have battle gear. Her supporters gathered around her. She had encountered prior to this. She had cancer in her 30s and 50s. However, it felt different this time. She resisted giving in to terror. Alan Hamill, her spouse, was by her side, as he had always done. She relied on her favorite alternative techniques as well as conventional care. She was resolute. Must battle until the end. Then October 15, 2023 arrived, one day before to her 77th birthday. While clutching Alan's hand, Suzanne passed away at home. The household had came together to honor her birthday. Rather, they bid each other farewell. Her passing signified the conclusion of a decades-long public life. She had penned 27 novels, created a health company, and appeared in well-known television programs like Thrash Company. However, above all, she had questioned the conventional wisdom of healing, health, and medicine, whether correctly or incorrectly. She never conceded. However, that was not the end of her story. In 2025 March, Alan Hamill, a digital copy of Suzanne, was unveiled, shocking the entire world. He had collaborated with a tech startup to use AI to revive her voice, appearance, and personality. The virtual Suzanne was able to communicate, recall past tales, and even show affection. Alan said that Suzanne had the idea. It was deemed touching by some. Some thought it was eerie. There were rumors that Alan intended to create additional Thross episodes using the AI. Holograms are used by the company. The public was split with it attributes exploitation. June 2025, 3 months later, Alan disclosed that he was dating once more actress Joanna Cassidy, his new lover, who had appeared alongside Suzanne in the 1985 season of Hollywood Wives. They had been acquainted for many years, but hadn't become close till after Suzanne passed her. According to Alan, Suzanne gave to her death. She gave him her blessing. She advised him to live rather than mow. Hey Alan, at 88, expressed gratitude for finding love once more. A few fans provided assistance. Others weren't prepared to watch him move on since they were still grieving for Suzanne.